The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to a Radulich Broadcasting premiere podcast. Chris thought that was funny. That's all I care about. Chris. Damn you, Hollywood. And here's your host, Robert Winfree. Yay!
Yeah, off to a glowing start. You can tell we have nothing really to say about this one because it's all just a little bit of silliness from the get-go.
I don't know if that has anything to do with it. I mean, I'm silly regardless of whether or not we have a lot to say.
You are, but I don't know. Maybe you have to be me to notice the difference. But I know when you're silly because you're you, and when you're silly because you're worried about content. So
it's fair.
Well, tonight,
you got me dead to rights.
We do have a couple of guests with us this evening. We were supposed to have a couple of more, but life. It interferes in all the ways. But joining us for this episode, we have Zachary Strobel. How you doing, Zach?
It's an audio medium, shithead.
Oh, sorry. How's it going, guys?
You have to at least do beep, bop, beep if you're going to do that.
Beep, boop, bop, beep. I can't turn my head. If I could turn my head, I would turn my head. But
something's wrong with your neck?
Yeah, it can't go 360 degrees. That's what's wrong with it.
That is a problem.
As Saint Wu-Tang Clan once said, protect your neck. And who else do we have, Robert?
We also have joining us from Movies That Don't Suck and Some That Do. We have Chris. Chris, how you doing?
What's up, guys?
What's up, Chris? Warming up, good. Chris. He's about to.
Chris?
Yeah.
Well,
what are we talking about today,
ladies
Robert?
and gentlemen, we are discussing. What is it? Did they confirm it became the largest opening for an original animated feature film?
I think it might be.
I know it was tracking for that. We'll get to that later. But DreamWorks, which is having a bit of a resurgence these days after bombing out for about 8 years. There's a stretch of time when DreamWorks is it's nothing. They seem to be pulling out on the other end of that, but we are talking about DreamWorks' latest feature, The Wild Robot.
The Wild Robert.
The Wild Robot.
You get one of those.
I know. I used it and I was happy. It was worth it.
The Wild Robot, for God's sakes, is a 2024 American animated science fiction survival film based on the book of the series of the same name by Peter Brown, produced by DreamWorks Animation, and distributed by Universal. It was written and directed by Chris Sanders, produced by Jeff Hermann, and executive produced by Sermon's longtime collaborative partner, Dean DeBlois. It stars the voices of Lupita Nyong'o, Pedro Pascal, Kit Connor, which my daughter was very excited about.
I can imagine.
Bill Nighy, Stephanie Sue, Mark Hamill, Catherine O'Hara, Matt Berry, and Ving Rhames. In the film, Roz, who is played by Nyong'o, a robot shipwrecked on an uninhabited island, must adapt to her surroundings, build relationship with the local wildlife, and become the adoptive mother of an orphaned goose. So, the story on this podcast was we were supposed to have Mick Wanamaker and Alexis Hana. And Alexis Hana and I think Zach were the ones who actually proposed that we do this months ago. And then Chris found out we were doing this, and even though he has his own podcast, he wanted to come on and talk about it on this one. Which are you guys doing the Wild Robot on Thursday or no? Or Wednesday, whatever it is you're recording?
Thursday we're actually doing Megapolis.
Okay.
And Apartment 7A, which is a
Right.
prequel to Rosemary's Baby. So,
Okay.
we'll probably do that next week. Probably.
I was gonna say you're gonna get to it next week. Okay.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
We're getting to Megapolis in I think 2 weeks. I think sometime after Joker.
You guys have fun talking about the movie.
Yeah, I can't wait. But going over to you, Zach. You, like I said, you and Alexis were the ones that proposed we do this. I actually rearranged my schedule to accommodate this, and I'm very glad I did for a variety of reasons, which I'll talk about when it's my turn. But what made you so excited to do this, that you proposed it? Why are you excited to be here tonight? What's the wild robot to you?
Well, I got down on one knee and proposed that. No, I really liked it. I actually posted this on Facebook, and yes, it is very good. You took the words right out of my mouth. And
plugs.
And there was this for those who are in the animation community. Jerry Beck actually liked this comment, and I said that The Wild Robot was the best Disney movie Disney never made.
Yeah, I have thoughts on that. Did you know? Hey, you're a children's author by profession.
Yes.
More on that in plugs. Your props away, sir. Had you read the book at all? Were you familiar at all with this property, or did you just kind of see the trailer when we did and went, that looks like worth talking about?
Yeah, I'm the latter. I did not know that this was based off a book. I know a lot of DreamWorks movies are based off of books, very out of the box books.
Mm-hmm.
I just saw it and I was just like, wow, this looks ambitious. This looks like fun. And yeah.
What about you, Chris? You pop up every once in a while. Again, you have your own podcast,
right.
which we syndicate here on the Radulich Broadcasting Network, or W2M, I should say. But you made it a special point to come on ours to talk about this, even though you're doing it on yours. So, what's your deal here?
So, one of the few things, Mo does a few things, but one thing she doesn't do is she doesn't ask me to take her to a movie, but this is the one she actually did. She wanted me to take her to see The Wild Robot. And I knew Neil's my co-host. She going on this week, but I wanted to talk about The Wild Robot because it just seemed like something that I can have thoughts about without being overwhelmed. So and also it looked really decent, basically.
I saw the trailer, Robert, right around the time that Alexis and Zach had proposed that we do this, and I think the first thing that really caught my attention was how beautiful the animation looked.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you guys propose animated stuff, and Alexis and Zach did Garfield by themselves, but
you guys missed out because that movie was awesome.
I've heard your review was one of the better ones that she's hosted. And I
tend where that streams. I do need to watch that.
I tend to be reticent about wanting to do animation these days because, other than like the Pixar stuff, which gives us something to talk about, good, bad, or indifferent, or the Illumination stuff, same. I find that with a lot of the children's fare, there isn't as much to talk about. And ends up, we end up kind of like and I know this is an Illumination one, and it kind of goes against my point, but go with it. Like, Migration, I remember that one just kind of being like, oh, it looks pretty, but it's fine. And I'm tired of doing it's fine. If I'm going to talk about stuff, I want to have something to talk about. Even if it's Lightyear. It was terrible. Like, why did we hit 2.5 hours of shit to talk about on that show? So that's why I ended up doing it anyway, but it was definitely under duress, like Kung Fu Panda 4. I did not want to do that one, but y'all twisted my arm. But this one, this is the point that I'm trying to make. This one actually looked interesting, and if it lived up to the potential of what I saw in it, I thought, well, this will make for a good conversation. This will make for a good review. I think there's a lot here, and I was not disappointed. I didn't quite get to Coco levels of I have a migraine from crying so hard, but Lily and I definitely walked out of the movie with hurt faces and headaches and
Walked right into the restroom to put cold water to put your face in
yeah,
cold water.
we both needed a minute. And there's my son who might as well be Robert's son. It's like, what's wrong with you two? Suck it up, pansies. No. No, that would be my dad. But yeah, like this movie definitely got me in the feels in a way that animated features of late have not. So can't wait to talk about it. Your thoughts, Robert, and then go into the plot synopsis.
Well, much like you, the first trailer I thought looked very interesting. Had a lot of high expectations for it. Saw the second trailer, and my enthusiasm was dampened, not extinguished, just lowered. I think largely appropriately now that I've seen it. Because I went from, oh, this could be like remarkably awesome to this will probably be very good. And largely I think that's how it played out.
Okay.
As for why I'm here, there's the gun off screen.
Yeah.
You're here because you love me.
Aw.
If you say it enough, it might be true.
Speaking of saying things enough, plot synopsis, you cheeky fellow, you.
Well, this should be quick. So, we open with our main character of Roz, a robot who gets activated after a mild shipment. There's like 6, I think, of these robots that all are lost in a typhoon. They all wash up on the shores of this uninhabited island somewhere. The exact geography is a little bit unknown.
Kind of near California.
And somewhere in that general vicinity, we know the geese fly over San Francisco at one point. That's about all we know. So she wakes up and, like any good helper robot, is looking for something to do, but there's only animals around and there's nothing that can be done for them. So eventually, through the power of sitting and listening for long enough, she learns the pure Adamic language, the language of the animals, and tries to find something to do for the animals, and the animals are all like, monster, because they're animals.
Can't wait to talk about that.
I have thoughts too. There's a bit of a chase sequence. A bunch of stuff goes sideways. She is chased by a bear, and it's sadly I cannot list it amongst the 3 best cinematic bears of all time.
So the bare minimum.
Hang on. Not giving you any more rim shots. I don't want to encourage the behavior. However, that did get a sad trombone. What was that, Zach?
I said it's going to be 6 hours long if you keep doing that.
So, chased by a bear, falls down a hill, knocks over a tree, and unfortunately, the tree and the robot fall onto a goose nest. Kill a goose, smash a bunch of eggs, and leave only one, which the robot picks up, and okay, maybe I'll try to keep this thing safe. And then Pedro Pascal in fox form shows up and tries to eat it. But this is not a P. Diddy party, so he is stopped from doing so.
Jesus.
Boo.
Your boos mean nothing to me. I've seen what makes you cheer.
I really got to get like a boo this man clip.
I keep telling you need it.
Yeah, I'll work on that. Or maybe one of my minions will.
But once again, for the record, your boos mean nothing. I've seen what makes you cheer.
Okay, Robert. None of us can be as good as you. Keep going.
Well, no, plenty of people are better than me.
Oh my God.
Well, then just tell me to get on with it and don't try to initiate a conversation. She hatches the egg safely, and now this gosling imprints on the robot, and this is our basic setup. The robot is told by Catherine O'Hara as a possum, technically an opossum. Congratulations, you're a parent now. Good luck with that. Just try to make sure it's fed, and it can swim, and it can fly, and then it'll all be good. Nature will take its course. So now the robot has these directives, and with the assistance of the fox named Fink, she's able to eventually feed the thing. After feeding the fox, a lot of A lot of shellfish that was cooked.
That was great.
It was a really nice sequence. And then, oh, wait, you want to defeat the gosling? Okay, here, have worms, kid. But able to feed it, build a shelter, start trying to teach it to swim with mixed results. Time passes. We fast forward to teenage goose named Brightbill. And he doesn't swim very well because he tries to swim like a human, and that's not how geese are supposed to swim. But they're trying to get him to swim. They're trying to get him to fly because migration is coming, and if he's stuck here, wherever they are, and winter shows up, it will go very, very badly for the poor bird. But the other geese don't like him because he's different. He's a runt, and he was raised by the weirdos. I mean, look, if you're a goose raised by a fox and a robot, I think a degree of skepticism is warranted. Fortunately, there is an older goose, Longneck, voiced by Bill Nighy, who approaches Roz and goes, "Look, I'm not opposed to this, but the other geese suck. I mean, geese all kind of suck. We'll take him with us, but he can't be a liability. So you kind of got him swimming. He needs to fly, and he needs to have endurance because migration flying is a whole thing." So she teaches him to fly with the help of Ving Rhames in the form of a falcon. And then they have to get him doing endurance flying. But ultimately, this is all successful. There's a bit here also where Brightbill is told that it was Roz who squished his family. And so there's parent and teenager friction, like they're fairly naturally.
Adoptive parent, which is what they were going for.
That too. But he's eventually beefed up. They get him ready. He's able to go. He takes off for the migration. And we get a little bit of world building as they migrate because we see the Golden Gate Bridge underwater with some humpback whales swimming over it.
Mm-hmm.
And now that her mission is complete, Roz considers activating the emergency locator beacon that will tell the parent company, was it United Dynamics or something to that effect?
Universal. Which they should name the studio after.
You know what? That's fair. We'll let Universal Dynamics know I need to be returned to the factory. Come get me. She's kind of talked out of this by the Fox. Like, hey, you could at least wait until he comes back. Make sure he doesn't get shot or something similar. So Roz decides to stick around for the rest of the year. The geese, meanwhile, find one of the last human settlements, it looks like. There's a lot of wasteland that they fly over. But they have to shelter from a storm in the big futuristic city where they are attacked because they're foreign contaminants, and there's an escape sequence, and Longneck dies. But the geese all get out. They make it to wherever they're going. Back on the island, it's the worst winter since, the big blizzard of '04. And a lot of things are in real dire straits. And Roz eventually, grabs most of the inhabitants of this island and brings them into her shelter where she has a fire. And they all kind of agree, all right, look, we're going to try to kill each other as soon as the storm's over. But if we all try to kill each other right now, we're all going to die. So while we're in here, we'll be in Switzerland. It'll all be good. And then, I'm going to go back to trying to eat all the little mice when it's all said and done because I have to eat. And everything at the bottom of the food chain goes, this is a great deal for us. We have a little bit of safety. We're good. Storm passes. Things kind of get back more towards normal. The geese return, including Brightbill, and he's now kind of the leader. Not the full leader, but kind of the leader, navigator. He and Roz get only a little bit of time to kind of patch things up because Universal Dynamics shows up and the evil robot, you can tell it's evil because it looks like a squid, shows up and is like, you need to come back and you need to be fixed and we gotta do a bunch of stuff with that. So they eventually abduct Roz, steal the memories from the robot. The animals are fighting back this whole time. There's a big action sequence. The geese heroically throw themselves into the propellers of the sorry, different Goose movie. The geese stage a big attack on the ship. Brightbill gets inside, finds Roz, and is able to kind of wake her up through the power of their emotional bond.
Power of love.
The ship blows up. They fall to the island. There's a comedic subplot where a beaver is chewing through like the thickest tree on the island. Everyone kind of makes fun of him for it, but he's been doing it for a long time. And now, because the island catches on fire from all the battle and the rubble and everything, they're able to finish his job, knock the tree over, and it diverts enough of a river to put out the big forest fire, or at least stop it from becoming too catastrophic. And everyone's now reunited, and Roz goes, they're just going to keep coming. I'm defective product. They can't just leave me out here. So I will go back voluntarily and then come get me later, because our bond is so strong it will survive the physical removal of hardware from a machine. So Roz goes off with them. The island goes back to being something slightly more paradisiacal, and sure, whatever. They still have Switzerland. Switzerland persists. As long as they're in Switzerland, the food chain no longer exists. And the last bit we see is the geese during a migration. Brightbill once again breaks into this human facility where he finds Roz, and Roz remembers who he is, and they embrace and roll credits. That's where we end.
All right, Zach,
Right.
what do you think of the movie?
Well, I thought it was real. I thought it was going to be fun. I didn't know where the movie was going. First of all, I don't know if this movie was in 3D. I don't know if that was an option. I don't know if
it was.
Oh, it was? Oh, then I missed out, because this movie was beautiful. It looked. Well, because for those who don't know, the guy who directed this movie also directed How to Train Your Dragon and Lilo and Stitch. So he's really good with storytelling and animation. And I feel like with the forest, it reminded me a lot of. Hold on, let me get my props. Reminded me a lot of Bambi. I only bought that for the prop, by the way. And
I assume you don't have a VHS player, so yes, I assume that only has prop value.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear
Color me. Hey, good for you, man. I can't find those things anymore.
you. Yeah. But yeah, it reminded me a lot. It was it looked kind of like you were looked at. It looked like you were in a painting. It actually looked like with heavy brush strokes, and it actually looked like you were in a painting with characters running around. It really.
I don't know the name of the painting style, but it felt like somebody we were painting with sponges. Like
Monet or Bob Ross or something.
That's kind of what it reminded me of.
Yeah, so I like that. So I wish I could have saw this in 3D, because, it looked like it would have pushed everything out and the characters coming out. But anyway, seeing it in I saw it in 2D, like a peasant, and I really enjoyed it. But it wasn't just the animation that really kept me involved. I really liked the characters. I really liked their arcs. I like their camaraderie dynamic. The man versus technology, the man versus nature, man versus man.
Mm-hmm.
I really like those and I feel like it's good that it's at a level where it's the story is old. It reminded me of movies of old, children's movies of old, where it's the story is, the concept is simple, but the characters are complex, and the themes are easily digestible, and I really like that. I thought Roz was really nice. I thought I liked they were Brightbill's, lack of a better word, wingmen. And no, I'm not even proud of that one. No, I just thought it was just a very nice movie, but it was because I saw this with my friend and his daughter, and I asked the child I was with, don't take that out of context. I saw the movie with. There we go. She said that it was actually a really good movie, but it was kind of sad. So, and I agree. It is very emotional. It has funny moments. It's beautiful. I thought it was a great movie.
So before I go over to you, Chris, I want to pipe in with this. I bought my son the book. I guess it was last weekend. When we went to go see Transformers, afterwards we ran over to the bookstore, and I bought him The Wild Robot, and I said, I want you to read this week, and then so when I see you next weekend to take you to The Wild Robot, you'll have the book read, and you can tell me the difference between the book and the movie. So we watched the movie, and before, as we're driving to the theater, I asked him, so what have you thought of the book so far? He's like, well, I'm almost done with it, and it's really short pages, it's short chapters. It's different than I expected. I'm not sure how close it's going to resemble the movie. I'm enjoying the book, but I don't love it, and I wish you would let me go back to reading World War Hulk. And I said, finish The Wild Robot, then you can read that.
Read better stuff, kid.
He is very, very caught up in comics right now. It took him until he was 10, but I got him there.
Your son has a gift, and you are rotting his brain away with World War Hulk.
He chose it. He read Planet Hulk first. He RP tested on it and everything, and now he wanted to read the next part of it. I'm gonna make him read the Infinity Gauntlet next. I also gave him the Trial of Galactus, so it's not like I'm just giving him Hulk shit to read. Anyway, the point is, we walked out of the movie, and I was like, "All right, Jonas, tell me about the book to film adaptation." He was like, "It doesn't follow the book all that well. Like, there is elements of it, sure, and there's definitely a different ending, and also." This is one in a series of books, so like there's more stuff out there, and they didn't really end the movie. I mean, they could do a sequel, but he was like, they didn't really address stuff in the book to lend itself to further storytelling. And I said, okay. He was like, also, and then he goes, I preferred the movie overall, and I actually think movies are a better way of telling a story than books. I don't know how I feel about that statement.
Who so prominently say on this show repeatedly books are for burning, and who has not given him anything to read, stuff to just look at. This is your own bed, sir, that you have made.
That is a fair criticism. All right, Chris. So that was my son's sort of take on it. He loved the movie just as much as my daughter and I did. Didn't quite hit him. I mean, it hit him in the feels, but he's not. He's more like his grandfather and Robert than he is like me and his sister, where we very viscerally and physically emote when stuff hits us that way. So that was his take. I will talk about my take after you, Chris. What did you think?
I thought it was delightful. I walked in ready to cry, so I cried through about half.
Just walked in with tissue boxes.
Yeah, I was ready. Like, bring it on. I need this. And, so it was beautifully shot. I saw it in Dolby. Yes. So I didn't 3D just fucks with me, so I'm glad I could see it in Dolby. And it was beautiful. It was a gorgeous movie. Beautifully animated. The characters were likable. I thought the fox was a lot like the fox from Zootopia. Like, to me,
I was missing Jason Bateman.
Yeah, I was like, if someone told me there was Jason Bateman, I would believe them because I didn't see that.
Disney owns that fox.
But I did like all the characters. Roz was. I mean, all of it was just sort of. It got together and like all the things like learning language through observation for 3 days. I was able to look past like any sort of things that I'd have to get past because I'm not that person that gets hung up on shit that's ridiculous. So but I went in with a really open mind, and I saw this with 4 friends, and every time I looked over, my wife was just like just sobbing because I was dehydrated too after this movie. It's a good movie. It's a better to me. It's been out of the millions of sequels, having this original film be this good is something I love about it. Like, we get so many sequels. Inside Out 2 or 3, those 2, right? And 2, and all these other sequels I didn't see them.
Utopia 2 coming out next year.
Oh, god damn it. So I saw Inside Out 2. I didn't see actually any of the Minion movies. Sadly, I don't know if that's a problem.
You're missing out. Robert can do an entire podcast just telling you how great the Minions are.
So
Great's a stretch. Enjoyable is more how I'd phrase that.
Robert thinks the Minions movie are the best thing that happened since The Godfather. I have 4 podcasts that will back me up on that.
So
at no point is that a thing I say, for the record.
So there was a bit of a message looking at the wasteland, like, you know, like the Golden Ridge underwater, because apparently the ice caps have melted. But this island, the island fucking is totally fine, untouched by the ravages that climate change have put upon it. But mostly I like this movie quite a bit, and I recommend it to everyone I see. There are a ton of movies I see, like I saw The Substance last weekend. I can't not recommend that to Lee's parents or my parents, but I can recommend this to everyone. It's a delightful film. Yeah, I cried a lot, and I felt good about it afterwards. And,
I came home and I was like, Jen, this was like the best movie I've seen this year. And she was like, so was Transformers 1. Your opinion means nothing. And I'm like, hold on. I have 10 pit movies to choose for my top 10. See, this is in like my top 5 at least.
I haven't seen Transformers 1 yet, but actually, after hearing your review of it, I mean, as I listened to, just like that, I didn't want anything given away, so I skipped to hear you gush about the beginning about it. So I have yet to see it, but I will. But I really, really enjoyed this movie, and I really hope that we get more original things. I'm going to say it all the time, and we're not. But this one, The Wild Robot, I loved it. I really did. And it's going to be in my top 10. I mean, right now, fall and winter has started really fucking hard for this to kick this off the top 5. I loved this movie. It's beautiful. And, I mean, I don't want to talk about well acted, but it was animated beautifully. And I mostly liked everything about this movie. I did.
Can I tell you that I'm so unprepared for my guest spot on your end of the year show? I'm forcing Robert to do a Damn You Hollywood. It is the 10 worst streaming movies of this year, just so I have stuff to add to my worst 5. Because it can't just be Madam Web and Borderlands.
Yeah.
And even Borderlands, I'm like whatever about.
First of all, it absolutely could. It really could.
We're gonna do this together, buddy. All right. When I was a child, 100 years ago, there were animated movies that were for children. That was the intended audience, but there was an element about their production that was appealing for adults. Parallel to that is a conversation that was had when we reviewed the movie Megan, where I asked the question, how old were you when you discovered horror? When you were exposed to the horror genre? And Robert said, I don't know, when I saw my first cartoon, probably, or something along those lines.
There was something to that effect, because if you look at the old Disney stuff,
Never heard of it.
There's segments that are like, hey, here's a thrilling escape sequence with a lot of horrific imagery.
There's a lot of frightening stuff, yeah. There's a lot of frightening stuff in those Disney movies.
Yeah, or, here's Are You Afraid of the Dark on TV? Or
So, some of the stuff I was thinking about, 2 very prominent cartoons from my youth, one of which gave me night terrors, or at least a big part of the night terrors that I had. The other one had horrific imagery, but didn't quite sit with me as badly as the first one did. I am referring to The Last Unicorn from Rankin and Bass, of which I've done a commentary for because Jesse wanted to torture me one night. And I've also referenced a whole bunch throughout the years I've been doing podcasting. Another one that I reference less, but I've brought it up once or twice before, is The Secret of Nim. The Secret of Nim has a lot of really, I wouldn't call it graphic, but definitely a lot of like horror
there's
imagery.
There's a lot of intense imagery in that, and Don Bluth, bless him, has a theory on this. And it goes something like, you can do children are resilient. If you make a kids movie, you can show them a lot of stuff. You can deal with heavy issues. It can be scary at times. I mean, there's 3 different sequences actually in The Land Before Time, before it turned into a self-referential parody, that are genuinely a little bit scary and heartbreaking. But his theory is you can do that because kids are stronger than you think,
right?
As long as the ending is happy. As long as your story concludes appropriately and is happy, kids will take that journey with you and will be okay by the end of it.
So as I watched the opening sequences of The Wild Robot, I was very much reminded of Moving Day, the Moving Day sequences from The Secret of Nim. And I was taken back to that conversation about light horror you're exposed to when you're a child. That initial sequence of Roz being dropped on the island and the animals, it in a more serious way, but it definitely was like I had a lot of stuff pinging at once. That's why I'm taking time to talk about this. I've watched a lot of movies, especially since I've been podcasting the last 20 years. So when something pings my brain as much as this one does, I know like we're in for a good trip, and this is something I'm going to want to talk about in some degree of detail. Watching Roz get dropped on and then have dropped on the island and then have the animals all over it, tearing out pieces of
Oh yeah, the raccoons.
yeah. And I kept thinking about the critters from South Park. So between my thoughts about Moving Day, Secret of Nim, The Last Unicorn, and then the critters from South Park, I was having quite a moment. I kept thinking like, I know where this movie is going, and it's not going to be this bad. But what a way to open your animated feature for families with this objectively horrifying imagery. Essentially, a being got dropped on a planet, and it was beaten, molested, and torn apart by everything on the goddamn island that could get its mitts on it. It was rough, man. Like even my kids and I were all looking at each other like, Jesus Christ, what is this movie we're watching? It was great. I loved it. The movie is gorgeous. I was on the edge of my seat, and not necessarily because it was a suspenseful movie. I would not say that. I was on the edge of my seat because I wanted to be closer to the animation. I now know how people felt watching Avatar. Like,
Yes.
I for the first time in outside of maybe a fantasy realm that I would like to live in besides this wretched coil we call Earth. This was the first time I wanted to be in the screen. Everything looked so pretty to me. I was, it was like the cartoon smoke from a pie. Like it was grabbing me, like, come into the theater, like, sit down, fat ass. No, I want to be in the screen.
I want to live in the sauce.
Yeah. So, it's the prettiest animated movie I've seen, I think, since Moana. Because Robert and I have reviewed a lot of animation on here, and I think Moana was the last time I made a huge deal about how pretty something looked that was animated.
Probably Disney's stuff since then has not been all that great to look at.
Yeah,
we were complimentary of Elemental. Some
I would
stuff
say
in it,
Luca. I would say, I mean,
Luca's lush.
Moana is the last conversation I remember you and I having where I distinctly for a while talked about how crisp the animation looked, how photorealistic it looked.
Moana. The other thing about that, Moana is a very nature movie, and Elemental is a city, a very nice city, but it is.
I was thinking about Luca
city-state.
too. We talked about how pretty Luca was.
Yeah.
But
Luca has a very distinct, Italian aesthetic.
Yeah.
To it, and that's what it's trying to do. This is nothing but nature.
Right. And
Almost.
I think that's as much as I am definitely a city mouse, I can be taken in by the wonder and beauty of nature, and this movie was very successful in creating that pull for me. I could not have loved the story of this adoptive parent taking on this child, and what the writer was using this movie as a metaphor to talk about motherhood, especially, but parenting in general. It was spot on. There was a lot of discussion in this movie in both the text and the subtext about what it means to be a parent. Imparting your wisdom, your knowledge, your behavioral guidance, and then the hard work of having to take a step back and literally letting that child fly. It's rough. I have a 10 and a 13-year-old. It's not easy sometimes to take a step back as a parent when you love your children, to let them go and do things and experience the world on their own, so they'll take those lessons in and learn the way that they're supposed to, so that they can then become successful, productive people. So there was a lot going on for me in this movie. The relationship between what's the Gosling's character's name?
Bright Bill.
Bright Bill. The relationship between Roz and Bright Bill was wonderful. Very, very eloquently written. Not to be outdone is Roz's relationship with the fox's name. Fink, yes, sorry. I'm really bad with character names. But, and I kept thinking, I don't know if Robert's going to like or hit me for this, but I kept thinking about Robert with the Fink character. Just in the feeling like an outsider, feeling like you don't quite belong. And, he kind of clings to her because here's this non-judgmental being that's entered this character's world, and they form a friendship, they form a bond. And then when that character is ready to move on and thinks like, what am I supposed to do without you? There's a lot of parallels I could feel with that. But I very much enjoyed the Roz and Fink relationship. The camaraderie, the interdependence, the love that they shared between the two of them. There's a reason why the movie got me in the feels, because all that stuff really got to me, in a happy way. Anything else about the movie? The action sequences where like the birds, it was a nice hero moment for Bright Bill when he leads the geese out of the farm, as it were.
They leave the biodome.
Biodome, yeah.
Sure, I don't know what it actually is.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny because
they see Pauly Shore and just know they have to get out of there.
Well, it was an interesting thing because like so much of the movie is, something I was talking to my kids about. I love another element of the movie, another theme of the movie is, and I hate to sound cliche about this and just name a book, but the book is the thing I'm talking about. Having a purpose-driven life, knowing that you have a thing to do, a task, a purpose is a part of what gives our life meaning. The movie addresses that directly in the character of Roz and her literal list of task completion list. And so it's so funny because like I'm watching Roz and the robot, somebody in their comments, fan nominator said that the movie reminded him of the Iron Giant meets Bambi meets Wall-E. And
not an unfair crossover.
Yeah.
You put those in the blender together. This is that you get about this.
So I was thinking about how robots, unless it's like Data from Star Trek, they're not necessarily supposed to emote. You don't necessarily read emotion on them, but there's a very clear presentation of purposeless depression going on with Roz in the first act of the movie, and the robot says, "Doesn't anyone have something along the lines of doesn't anyone have a task for me?"
Yeah.
And without one, the character is lost. And I don't want to get too far off on a tangent with this, but I definitely saw a religious reading of this movie in the sense of, and it doesn't have to be any particular religion, but just that sense of like what drives us, what gives us purpose, then having things to do, and without it, we're lost. So moving forward, when Roz takes on raising this gosling in absence of its parent, and then it's like, well, you got to teach it to fly, you got to feed it, you got to teach it to swim, then you got to teach it to fly. And she gets the thing in the air, and he flies, and he migrates, and I'm like, all right, we're done here. Like little did I know there was still more movie to go.
Yeah,
and I kind of had like, now I know how everyone else who saw Return of the King felt. because I'm like, are we done now? And like, no,
never
there's still more fucking movie to go. And not that I was mad about it. I thought I wasn't having a good time, but I definitely felt like there was some natural conclusions to the movie and then they just kept going.
Chapter 1.
This would not be a Damn You Hollywood if I didn't have a quibble. And that this robot fights so hard for its freedom and autonomy to turn around and say, I'm going back anyway. Because if I don't, I understand why. It made sense, but it made sense the first time. It keeps doing different pronouns. I'm just gonna go with she. The first time Roz gives herself up, nothing changed from that point to the next point after they've burnt the island down and destroyed the robots and did all kinds of stuff. She arrived at the same exact place. It's a small quibble. It's not worth screaming about, but it's definitely one of those things where I was like, okay, that's the one issue I have with this movie is she arrived at a place, fought to change it, arrived the exact same spot again. And then they do the reuniting at the very end of it, and it's that was the other part of it where it's like I don't want to be mad at this because it's magic, but the idea of they wipe this computer's memory and then through the power of magic and motherhood it remembers who it is and who the baby is. All right. Like, I don't want to be mad at it because it's like being mad at Disney magic or Santa magic. It's magic. It's there for a reason. But in a movie, a movie with talking animals and all of this other stuff, I'm trying to figure out where the line of reality is, and maybe kind of like Chris, maybe not get so caught up in that and just kind of enjoy it for what it was. So those are my thoughts. Robert, what did you think?
I'm going to echo the vast majority of the positives that have been shared already. It is gorgeously animated. The style in particular, again, very painterly. The difference in artistic style between the robot and the natural world, I think, was a very obvious but a very good choice, because they're not they're not like way out of sync, but they are not the same style of art between those two things. Right. The emotions all hit. If I have a quibble, it's not actually with not necessarily with the finale. It's more with their. Put it this way, I thought this was a stronger and more interesting story when the animals behaved like animals, even though they talked.
Okay.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's what happened. The second trailer came out. I felt the same way. Like, oh, these animals are talking now. Yeah.
Well, I was okay with it for a little, mostly because they talk, but like they're still animals, and it's a weird thing that for the first, 2/3, give or take, of this movie, they're not overly anthropomorphized. The opossum is like, I've got 6 kids. Here's a shriek. Okay, I got 5 kids. Like that's not a human response. That's an animal response.
Right.
Or the fox is like boiling a crab.
Yeah, I'll give you a good one. As sort of a distinction, and I laughed hard at it because it's a funny line, but it's one of those that's a little too human for you. After they've defeated the robots, and the one rabbit goes, and we will divide the robot meat amongst all of us.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, it's a funny joke, and it was delivered up with a plum, but that's too human for that animal character.
Yeah, or there's a line when the bear looks at the fox and goes, I'm going to be chasing you again tomorrow, right? And then he laughs like, no, I'm just kidding with you. And, we're buddies now. Like, no, that was actually stronger with the original, with the original thing. Like, I don't hate you. We're not enemies, but I'm a bear and you're a fox. And tomorrow, I still got to eat, And so I thought in general it was stronger when it was dealing with stuff like that instead of.
When you brought up Switzerland, it was like Switzerland existed because if they didn't, they'd all freeze to death and die, and many of them were on the verge of death when Roz found them. That
Yeah,
was the
so-
strength of that scene, but it only works if everyone acknowledges this. It was this or death. Tomorrow we go back to normal.
And that's which is why I was okay with them kind of like re-rallying to help Roz. But in general, like it became a little bit too Disney for me, and I mean that in slightly the negative sense this time around. With all of with a lot of the anthropomorphic Disney talking animal stuff, you get just too far removed from reality in a lot of them, where nothing behaves like it's supposed to behave. And for this movie to have spent a lot of the time with the animals fundamentally behaving like animals, even if they talk, they don't react to things like people, they react to things like animals do. To then go to a very Disneyfied existence by the end of it, that doesn't quite work for me. That felt a little bit off. I mentioned that I can't give this bear a very high rating as far as animated bears go, because most animated bears should be voiced by Nick Nolte. I don't think that should be a controversial sentiment. And you didn't have Nick Nolte here, so automatically lower on the list.
Seems a bit picayune, but go on.
It is, but I'm allowed a bizarre quibble here or there when everything else is this strong.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, come on, if I'm complaining about the voice casting when it's still very good because they got Mark Hamill for this.
You said voice casting. That was something that even my kids and I picked up. And I wish this is the one thing I wish Alexis was here for, because she's very keen on this. It's one of those things where she really shows her value and her worth on this subject. She's often said it bothers her when they get big time celebrities, because it just feels like they just got that celebrity to sound like that celebrity, and who cares? The art of voice acting is to create a character with your voice.
Yeah.
And from Lupita Nyong'o to Pedro Pascal, with the exception of Bill Nighy, he just sounds like himself. But he was fine. He was kind of a comic relief character anyway. But everybody else really did. Like, I couldn't tell who anyone was. And
I think the only one I kind of sort of, I'm going to stress sort of recognize, was the beaver, because he's very bombastic.
Well, yeah, that was Bill Nighy.
No, Bill Nighy's the goose.
Oh, shit. Okay, hang on. Anyway, the point is, you're right, he was the goose. Matt Berry, whoever that is. The point is that I thought the voice acting was stellar in this. I think almost everybody created individual characters with their voices and really lending themselves to performance, as opposed to Chris Pratt as Mario just sounding like
I was
Chris
just
Pratt.
about to say that. I was so pissed. That was one of the things that came out saying, I'm so glad Chris Pratt wasn't in that.
Come on, all the other Disney projects, and you decide to pick on Chris Pratt as Mario, really?
Yes, because it's a great example of they just hired a guy to sound like himself.
Yep.
From the same movie as Jack Black in it, and Jack Black's only ever been Jack Black.
Skadoosh.
Okay, I would slightly reconsider for Poe, but everything else he does, he's just...
I am Steve, and my favorite part of that is my son, like, standing up, screaming, letting his underwear on fire, and throwing it at the screen, going, "I hate Minecraft." That might be a slight exaggeration, but I was like,
not by much.
I love my son. He was like, dude, he all but said fuck this movie. It was great. I'm gonna make him go see it anyway, but like, I love the fact that he reacted that viscerally to Minecraft.
I saw Jack Black pop up to him. I'm like, that tracks will be in this. He'll be there for
that. Minecraft legitimately might be one of the worst movies ever made.
Anyway, back to The Wild Robot.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, the voice acting here is actually acting. It's not just line readings. Yeah. So big thumbs up to everyone involved with that. They get extra thumbs up for D. Bradley Baker being several of the other animals, including the badgers, and there was something else he did. And, he does all the animal noises, so.
Was Frank Welker in this? Because he usually does animal voices.
I didn't see him, but I'd have to double check.
Not on the main cast list.
Oh, okay. That's surprising.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
This is a very nice, very well executed, emotionally resonant, gorgeous to look at, well constructed film. Like there's almost no. I mean, when our gripes are as minimalistic as these have been, you've got a winning movie on your hands here. I tend to think the Oscar for Best Animated Feature is going to go between this one and there's another movie that's slated to go into wide release in the near future called Flow that I think is probably going to be our other major contender. Inside Out 2 will be the one that everyone's seen because Pixar, but I honestly think it's not. Inside Out 2 is a very good movie. I don't think it's positioned to actually win any of the major animation awards
I
this
hope
year.
not. It doesn't deserve it. It was fine. You know, it did as well as it did because it's Pixar. It wasn't gay. You know,
It was close.
and it was a sequel to. I calls it a C, Chris. And again, that's not my gripe, but I'm not, half this country. Yeah, so like it wasn't, and it was a sequel to an already successful $1 billion movie. It was Pixar, and it wasn't gay. So yeah, it did well. But does it deserve an Oscar? No, this deserves an Oscar. This is the kind of quality animated film that deserves to win awards, not Inside Out 2. Inside Out 2 is a fine, crowd pleasing, money making movie, and I don't begrudge it that, believe me. But it doesn't deserve to win any awards. This one does.
Yeah, there's a few others that might be able to give this a run for its money, but this is your front runner from where I sit right now for a lot of the awards when that particular thing rolls around.
I actually said that. I said somebody remind Pixar this is how you used to make movies, because this felt like the best of Pixar, but they've since forgotten how to do this.
Yeah, I thought it was one of the best DreamWorks movies ever made.
Yeah. We're getting a fifth one of those in the year of our Lord. I think it's 2026.
I know, it's happening.
Look, I'm really hoping that something burns down before then. Okay, y'all have to understand something about this since we're bringing up Shrek. I have seen exactly one Shrek movie. One.
Was it a good one?
I saw the first one because I was a teenager when it came out and there was no getting away from it.
Yeah.
I have eschewed all of the rest vociferously. If five actually comes out, Mark's going to put the gun to my head and say we're reviewing this.
Doesn't mean you have to go back and watch all the other ones to be completist?
Oh yeah, we have to do a Long Road to Ruin. I'm not going to make.
You are welcome to do that with any guest you choose. That is not me.
Any one of the broads, I'm sure that have been wanting to come on this podcast will be happy. You chose to be here. We'll be happy to do a Long Road to Ruin for Shrek, so that won't be a problem. But yeah, I'm not looking forward to fucking Shrek 5 or Toy Story 5 for that matter. Right. Chris, anything between what I've said and what Robert said that you want to weigh in on? Zach, same, but Chris first.
Not really. I agree with most of your points, and you and the gripes are so small that I can't find anything there's nothing I really disliked about this movie at all. I pretty much liked it all. It deserves the Oscar for Best Animated, and I'm gonna tell everyone I know to see this movie if they haven't.
You're gonna like strap Neil to a chair Clockwork Orange style and make him watch it.
I think Neil has every now and then he'll text me when he's having a bad day. He's like, I just want to watch something happy. I'm like, okay, I can make you watch this, but we'll be happy then. I don't know.
Fair. All right, take me home, baby doll. That's you, Zach.
Oh, sorry. Oh, thank you. No, I thought it was a great movie. It was very nostalgic, even though it was kind of an original movie. Like like this is how you make a movie, like a kid's movie, a family movie. Like
yeah, it definitely took me. Like I said, it took me back to when I was a kid, which very rarely anything does.
Yeah, I was talking to my friend. I'm like, this was supposed to be DreamWorks. Like, I'm sure they probably got notes where it's like they threw the duck up in the air and they were like, "Oh no, you didn't." I'm like, "No, we need to. We need to cut that out. This is a timeless movie."
That's how the fart jokes got in there. Like, this needs more fart jokes. Like, we'll figure fucking. That
was just artificial intelligence. There we go.
Artificial intelligence. All right, we're done with you. Good day, sir. All right. Well, that is our review of the Wild Robot. So
Yeah,
next
go
up,
see it if you. This is perfectly fine for everyone. Wonderful time at the movies. Go see it if you have the time and the energy.
yeah, if you, this is. We've talked a lot about the current state of animation and how some of it's not safe for certain kinds of families. This one is as crowd pleasing and general audience approved as they could possibly make in the year of our Lord 2024. It was almost anachronistic. It's like
Yeah.
did they find a movie from '84 and just bring it to the future? They're like, here, you might need this.
The script has been sitting around for 30 years, 40 years or so, and we're just finally getting around to it.
Yeah. All right, folks, here comes the money.
We're in the money. We're in the money.
All righty. Assuming we've got... Nope, we don't.
Hope we don't go in the corner. Oh, no, we did.
I love you, Zach. All righty. On a budget of $78 million.
Wow, they stretched that. Like, this is... I would have bet this actually was more expensive than that.
So, Robert, I have a question. I have a very important question for you.
Yes, sir.
This thing has a budget of $78 million. It's already made $54 million and was the #1 movie of the weekend. Can I play it? Can I play it?
Sure.
Does this qualify?
All
oh
right.
boy, this, folks, was a wild success. V for victory. What do you think of that, Chris?
It was good. I was like, "This is from Vendetta," and I was thinking, "Well, it's officially busted." So we're all good on that.
Yeah, it's a bit loud. Do you like that? You like that, Zach? That's how we celebrate successful movies now here on Damn You Hollywood.
Yeah, it was a blast.
Dirk. All right. So anyway, the Wild Robot, as they call it. As of September 30th, 2024, the Wild Robot has grossed $35.8 million in the U.S. and Canada, and $18.1 million in other territories for a worldwide total of $54 million. In the U.S. and Canada, the Wild Robot was released alongside Megalopolis. Speaking of bombs, and was projected.
Save it. By the time we get to it, we will know its bomb status.
Yeah.
I'll be on direct-to-video. I mean, well, only I didn't do that.
Yeah, it's still probably okay what it's made. I knew it would made because I had a friend who messaged me about it, but we'll talk about it.
In 2 weeks, it'll be on Freebie. And was
I'm sure Tubi is just licking their chops for it.
It was projected to gross 24 to 30 million from about 4,000 theaters in its opening weekend. The film made 11.3 million on its first day, including 1.9 million from Thursday previews. The film made its debut 35 million, slightly above predictions, topping the box office, becoming the third biggest opening for. There you go, Robert. The third biggest opening for September animated film behind Hotel Transylvania from 2012 and its successor, Hotel Transylvania 2 from 2015. So that's that. It was, in fact, the #1 movie of the weekend. It knocked Beetlejuice from 1 to 2. Transformers 2 had debuted at #2 and it fell to 3. Devara Part 1 debuted at 4. Speak No Evil, which they reviewed this past week, I believe, on Movies That Don't Suck and Some That Do.
We did, yeah.
Speaking of which, what did you think of, in like 50 words or less, Chris, what did you think of Speak No Evil?
It was a show for James McAvoy. It was fun. It was interesting. There's a Danish version on Shudder that's just about the same and good.
Okay.
But I saw it's sufficiently suspenseful. It's a good time of year to see it. But James McAvoy is definitely the star of this thing.
The critically acclaimed people said that the victim family, the heroes, are not likable people.
They aren't. No one in this thing's really likable unless you look at like them for their evil thing. Like that's.
Look, guys, if you want to see that, go watch the original. There's an original. I think it's Dutch.
Yeah.
The original's better. It's just better. You just don't have James McAvoy.
Okay.
But the original's better, and that's actually why I'm not going to watch that one, because The original is
Better.
just it's not just better, it's messed up in a way that makes me go, if I'm going to take this trip, I'm going to do it the best way I can, and that's not what you've done with
So,
the other
Chris,
one.
your pitch for people to go see Speak No Evil is if you like James McAvoy and you want to see him eat scenery, this is the movie for you.
100%.
Cool. Moving on. Megalopolis debuted at number 6. I know Francis. We talked about this last week. Francis Ford Coppola doesn't give a fuck. He has he's 100 and has a winery. He can make what he wants. But hang on. Yes, but let me say this.
Oh.
But I still think somewhere in this man's mind, he wants to make movies that are good and people will like and be well received. And Megalopolis seems to be none of those things. And I got to imagine that hurts his heart. Go ahead, Chris.
So I saw like the opening night with the Q&A live screen with Spike Lee and Robert De Niro, and Francis Ford Coppola he was comparing this to that how in years from now people will talk about how to love this movie. He's like compared to Apocalypse Now, in the way that reappraisal was coming out, and that years from now this will be recognized as a brilliant movie. And I was like, man, you're really talking this shit up. But
I'm gonna throw this out there. Film people like us are a dying breed. And I bring that up relative to his point about Apocalypse Now. Apocalypse Now was out when I was a kid. And I watched it when I got into film years later in high school and then again in college. And I'll probably someday do a focus on Francis Ford Coppola or an On Trial, and I'll end up reviewing Apocalypse Now on.
Hang on. If you want to do that, I'm down to do a director focus with you. The same way we're kind of going to do. We're sort of planning it out, but we're doing one for Roland Emmerich.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to kind of like, hang on, because Emmerich's career trajectory I find genuinely interesting. So for those of you who don't know, the basic premise of this will be we look at their filmography. Some we're only going to talk about briefly. Some are going to get a little bit more of a deep dive. We're going to talk about some of the more important ones. And we're going to kind of chart, again, the career. I am totally down to do one of those on Coppola with you because much like Emmerich, the trajectory of that man's career I find compelling in weird ways.
Okay. So I was thinking about this with actually Oliver Stone as well recently.
Yeah.
I kept thinking about like directors I haven't talked about yet or even reviewed much of their filmography. Oliver Stone's one of them. We almost got to Platoon. It didn't happen. My point is, we as film people can look back at 30 or 40 years of film and go, I reconsider my position on this. This is interesting to me. Everything that you're talking about that Francis Ford Coppola said is things that it is definitely within the realm of possibility will do. The generation or two behind us, my kids' age, take my kids out of it. They've had me for a father. My daughter and I were talking the brilliant film craft and the multiple layers of Blame It on Rio as I was driving her home from choir tonight.
Fair enough.
They are steeped in film criticism because they have me as a dad. But I am in the minority, not the majority. So what I'm saying is, in 10 to 20 to 30 years, is anyone my kids' age, when they're adults, going to look back at Megalopolis and go, it was not appreciated in the 2020s, but here we are in the 2050s, and yeah, it really spoke to the time. No, they're not. No one's going to fucking remember. You know what they're going to remember? TikTok. That's what they're going to remember. They're going to remember the nonsense my son talks ad nauseum about on YouTube. They're not going to look back at 30 years of film and go, I want to reconsider my position on this.
They're going to talk about the 14th Dogman movie. God help us.
So
can I tell you, just as a brief aside about that?
About Dogman?
Little bit brief aside.
Yeah.
So every other Wednesday, I'm responsible for functionally babysitting a bunch of like 8 and 9-year-olds for about an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And I have nothing in common with these children. I mean, straight up nothing. The attention span is not there. But one of them just went over to a chalkboard at one point and drew Dogman, and I had no idea what it was. But he drew it, and somebody else went, "Oh, you're drawing Dogman," and like, "Oh, you're speaking a foreign language." That's what we're doing here. Because then one of them brought up the Minecraft movie, and I had to bite my tongue.
You said I had to bite that child.
I thought about that. I don't. No, you will not watch bad things. I will talk to your parents about this, and we'll try to fix you. The parents are going to say, no, he likes the YouTubes, and then he's quiet. So,
Sometimes the towels have to be folded, Robert. The towels have to be folded.
You're not wrong, but there was a time when we did better than we're doing now. That's all I'm saying.
We're a long ways removed from Sesame Street. But so
boy, ain't that the truth.
So I didn't want to necessarily stomp all over your point there, but I don't think Francis Ford Coppola understands that the generation behind us is not going to appreciate decades-old film the way we do.
Mm-hmm.
Like the translation from apocalypse to megalopolis is not there.
No.
The whole process of re-examination or revisionism, I appreciate that we're kind of trying to do it now. There's people, especially younger people, sort of going at it. Here's the problem. Let me give you an example. I don't know how many of I don't know Zach or Chris. Chris, I think you're a pro wrestling fan.
No, he's not.
No,
I'm not.
No, it's the reverse. Neil straps him to a chair and Clockwork Oranges him to, and then, but he doesn't show him the pro wrestling. He just tells him stories, and Chris, wonders if an asteroid's going to hit him.
Yeah, shake my head. I'm like, okay, I'll let him get out.
Well, hang on. Let me just very briefly, I can make this point. This happened a few months back on Twitter. Somebody did the clip of Roman Reigns the first time he won the Royal Rumble, and just got booed out of the building for it. Right? You remember this, Mark? You were watching.
I remember it. Yep.
Okay, so this is gonna. So the tweet in question was, "Boy, this crowd was ass." Can we acknowledge that? I had to jump on with a bunch of other people going, we are not doing historical revisionism here. They didn't boo Roman Reigns because the crowd sucked. The product was awful at that time. The people who came into wrestling recently and have only seen Tribal Chief Roman, who is awesome, one of the best things in wrestling, bar none, then go, oh, so everything he did was great, right? Because clearly he's great now.
He won the Royal Rumble during the I Taught a Putty Tat, Roman Reigns, right?
He was, the big dog, Roman Reigns.
Oh, yeah, he was awful. Everyone hated him, and rightly so.
So, the point is, everyone who was there for all of this went, no, we're not doing historical revisionism here. The product was bad.
Right.
And Roman grew out of it and grew into a great performer and a great character. And again, the best thing in wrestling, arguably. But we're not going to halo effect how bad the product was at that time. It was almost historically bad. And there's a lot of younger people. I don't mean to be the old man here yelling at clouds, because I say this because when I was younger, I was occasionally guilty of this. There's context to appropriate re-examination and potential revisionism that needs to go on. And if you're not you don't have to have been there yourself, but you have to have the right conversations with people who were to get the right context. That's a big part of the reason why re-examinations are successful, because you look back and go, okay, so wait, why didn't anybody like John Carpenter's The Thing? And you talk with the people about, like, okay, why did this miss? And they go, oh, okay, here's why it missed. Here's why you were mistaken. And most of them will even go, yeah, that's why we were mistaken about it. And that's why it has a good reputation now.
This is a clip I would love to cut for Twitter, but I already know no one will care.
Correct.
So moving on. Like, that is the meta commentary of that entire last 10 minutes of conversation. I care about this stuff. That's why I talked about it. It's my podcast. However, when I think to people watching now and will watch this in the future going, who the fuck cares about any of this? Tell us where Deadpool and Wolverine is. Well, it's number 7. It fell from 5.
We'll start at 1.
Never Let Go, 4 to 8. My old
Hey,
ass.
start at 1. You didn't start at the top.
I did, you asshole. I did. We got to Megalopolis and I stopped.
No, we went to talking about Megalopolis without talking about where it
see,
landed.
Chris, help me. Chris, help
I did- I
me.
did.
Hang on, no, Mark. You were reading the wiki and said it released alongside Megalopolis. Boy,
Yeah.
what a bomb! And then we spun out.
Chris,
Yes,
I swear to
he's-
God, wasn't I reading from the chart?
Not exactly.
Ugh.
You were reading the wiki.
I'm telling you I wasn't, but because I don't want to do this anymore. Wild Robot 1, Beetlejuice 1 to 2, Transformers 2 to 3, Devara Part 1 debuted to 4, Speak No Evil, which I got to this point before and asked Chris about, 3 to 5, Megalopolis, where we stopped, is debuted at number 6. Deadpool and Wolverine 5 to 7, Never Let Go 4 to 8. My old ass. Have you seen this one, Chris?
I guess seen that. I actually saw the AMC Screen Unseen did a thing, and
Yeah.
that's what my old ass on there. It's a fine movie.
Is
Yeah,
it about early donkey?
I'm sorry, what's that?
he made a donkey joke. 'Cause you gotta understand how Zach
The
thinks.
donkey, okay. But
It's about the Democratic president, right?
Ah,
All of you, just terrible. I want to talk about Aubrey Plaza for a moment. So,
She's great.
I can't imagine why.
So Aubrey Plaza, I feel like, has this career trajectory of I'm gonna do stuff no one's gonna watch, but it's all gonna be awesome. True or false?
My old ass, she's great in it.
Okay.
And she's also surprisingly effective in Megalopolis.
Oh, that's right. She's in that too.
Yeah.
Everyone's in Megalopolis. I have a brief cameo.
Awesome. Howl's Moving Castle. That's the one you were talking about. Debut number 10.
Dude, can I just, as a brief, do you know why Howl's Castle moves?
Why?
magic.
Taxes. It's not a joke. If you read the story that movie's based on, the castle moves so he can't be pinned down to pay taxes to any of the governments he works for.
Chris, how is the substance?
Fantastic. Probably be one of the top 5 at the end of the year. 100% easy.
A movie that my kids and I kind of want to see just for the lulz. Am I Racist? Dropped from 7 to 12.
Okay, Mark, you would find that hilarious.
I'm
for the
sure.
record, you appreciate the grifters being exposed, and there's a lot of that goes on.
All right. Vindicating Trump debuted at 13. Lee debuted at 15. Azrael debuted at 18. And a movie I almost threw on the schedule, but then decided nobody cares. Why am I bothering? And I don't even know where I can find it. Saturday Night, which is about Saturday Night Live, debuted.
There's not enough cocaine in this. There's not enough. There was so much more actually unsaid.
Wasn't that one of your top 3 bears?
Yes. Sleep debuted at number 35. The Universal Theory at 51. And that was the weekend that was exhausting. All right. Well, nothing moved.
Very little.
Inside Out is still number 1. Deadpool and Wolverine still number 2. And they're the only 2 movies that have hit $1 billion. Despicable Me ran out of gas, just short of $1 billion. And then we have a $200 million drop.
For the record, there's these giant drops. I mean, even between 1 and 2.
Yeah.
That's like $300+ million difference between Inside Out 2 and Deadpool and Wolverine.
And then another $200 million drop from Dune to Godzilla.
Yeah.
And then we start. Then it's a matter of inches between Kung Fu Panda, Bad Boys Ride or Die, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and all right, crossing the only movement here, crossing into the top 10 is Beetlejuice at 374 million, and rounding out the top 10 is Twisters.
Beetlejuice might supplant Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, I think it's the only thing worth discussing. Chris, Beetlejuice was number 1 twice. Since it's come out. It's at 374 million now. October is not that steep with anything spectacular other than Joker. So do you think how much more gas do you think Beetlejuice has before it runs out? And where do you think it'll land?
Oh, where's it right now?
374.
I think it will stop. It'll run out of gas. I think it's starting to run out of gas now. But probably around 500 million. I thought probably run out of gas there.
Yeah, I was gonna say it. I would say between where it is now and 500 million, somewhere in there. I would almost venture to guess it stays in the 400 millions.
I'm going to be a bit more pessimistic than you guys. I think it'll get by Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, but I think it'll probably be a bit lucky if it breaks 450.
Okay. Yeah, I would tend to agree. I think it dies somewhere in the 4s. Where in the 4s, I can't necessarily say. Next week is Joker. That's going to be the big. That's the big October release until we get to Venom. I mean, this stuff coming out, and I think you guys will get to more of it than we will. Because I can tell you right now, like Megalopolis just came out, and we're not going to get to it until the 14th. So we have the Joker on the 7th. We have Megalopolis on the 14th, and then we're taking a break for a week, and then we're back for Venom.
Out for blood.
I would say that all of those would impede any kind of progress Beetlejuice makes. But let's talk about the movie at hand. The Wild Robot. I don't think there's any other animated features in the month of October for family. So
there's not a lot of family movies in general for October.
Yeah, I would say this is probably.
I think Terrifier 3 is a family movie.
Let me. I don't like you. List of 2020 American movies. So I should just have this up from now on because we keep addressing it. Oh, that's the wrong one. There we go. All right. So the month of October. I'm looking at the movies that are coming out, and I'm not really seeing anything. I mean, there's Hellboy: The Crooked Man.
That's going they pulled that from theaters. That's going like day and date kind of thing. It's
That's going
streaming.
straight to PVOD. Yeah, there's nothing I can see that is a animated feature in the month of October that's coming out.
Aren't they going to re-release some stuff though?
I mean, there's more stuff coming out, but I'm just looking at stuff that would be competitive with the Wild Robot. Not really seeing anything in the month of November either, near as I can tell. So, I mean,
it's among the few family movies this time of year. It might have decent legs.
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing I can think of, I mean, Moana 2 comes out at the end of November.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's got some, and before that is Wicked, if you're counting that as family.
Hang on. I refuse to count Wicked because its runtime is 2 hours and 40 minutes.
It's, by the way, it's Wicked Part 1.
Yeah,
I know.
We're well aware of that.
Oh, no.
What about Red 1? Would we consider Red 1 to be a family movie?
It's going to try.
Yeah,
I don't know how well that one's going to succeed, though.
Right. So, The Wild Robot has the entire month of October to make its money before
pretty much
approximating competition comes out, or it's just too stale in the theaters and people stop caring.
Yeah.
Which it's in the 50s now. I think it'll cross 100 million, but that'll be the end of it, Robert.
I expect the legs to be okay. It's got to get to what, 150 to be profitable?
Yeah.
It'll probably get there, but
I was thinking it's going to die at 100.
What's it at right now, you said? 50 something?
58, yeah. And Joker comes out this week. Not that kids are going to go see.
Hang on.
Not that besides, other than my kids. I showed my kids Joker, by the way.
They're going to buy a ticket for Wild Robot and then go sneak into Joker.
Sure. Yeah,
theater hopping could be a thing.
I showed my kids Joker last weekend.
That had to have been an interesting experience.
Well, you have my daughter who's very interested in psychology, and my son who, is developing my taste in movies for the most part. And their reaction to Joker was, this took entirely too long for him to get to be Joker.
That would in fact be the reaction of a 10-year-old and a 13-year-old.
Yeah. They also thought it was incredibly sad, which they are also correct.
Well, yeah, it's supposed to be.
Yeah, it's not The other thing is, we were talking about the reveal that a lot of what was going on with him is Zazie Beetz is in his head, and then I said, and they were like, that was the one like real emotional reaction from both my kids, especially Lily. She was like, "Oh my god!" Like, "Oh, he was imagining it all," and I'm just like, "I should show you Fight Club."
Yeah, but Fight Club sucks.
Oh! I like Fight Club.
I have had that argument with people. I will die on that.
I have already done an entire podcast debating that. All right.
Not with me, you haven't.
No, with Sean. podcast
No, I
industry
think it'll probably get to about where it needs to be financially successful,
Alright, so you think it'll go to 150, Chris? 150,
give or take.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm with-
it,
I'm
it's
with-
got well, as you mentioned, it's got like 4 weeks to
Mhm.
just kind of get what it's done again, to get 3 times what it has now. It's not really outside the realm of possibility.
Zach, you got anything you want to weigh in on before we move on to the last segment?
I think it will. I think it'll get. I think it does have positive word of mouth. I mean,
That's
Mhm.
true.
it does have a 98 on Rotten Tomatoes. Not that that matters, but I mean,
Hey, don't get too far ahead of me.
He's trying to segue you.
I'm just saying the positive word of mouth may help this. I mean, and also it's a kids movie, so they
Yeah.
have to bring an adult, so that's already twice as many tickets. I mean,
Yeah, we've talked before for a few of these more family-oriented movies these days. Their openings are not nearly as big as they used to be, but if the word of mouth is good, if the reviews from people they trust are good, the second week can be very strong for them because it's not gonna preach at my kids, so
Yeah.
we're good to go to it.
Elemental made all of its money much later after it came out.
Yeah, much and frequently overseas.
they did our review.
Sure did. All right, folks. With that said, here is the final segment of the evening. Are you ready?
Are you ready? No! I said, are you ready?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Well, no surprise here. 98% on the tomato meter, 98% on the audience meter. I'm not saying that fucking word. So yeah, it's 97% for top critics, a negligible difference, and the very same for all audiences and verified audience. The AI writes, a simple tale told with great sophistication, The Wild Robot is wondrous entertainment that dazzles the eye while filling your heart to the brim.
Correct. Good AI.
Good AI. All right. Let's read a couple of these. We won't spend too long on this. Uncle Leonard. Uncle Malty.
Oh,
How
Winnie.
are you, sir?
Winnie.
Still alive.
I
Leonard
haven't thought that it's still way over there, so you're just gonna have to use your imagination on that problem.
Leonard Maltin of LeonardMaltin.com, top critic. The Wild Robot is genuinely a beautiful movie in every sense of that adjective. Its physical production is impressive to say the least, but there are no weak links in this chain, from character design to its exquisitely rendered environment.
He is correct. There is every element of good filmmaking is present here at every level.
Doug Walker of AbusivePodcasters.com. Channel awesome. Aggressively delightful.
But you repeat yourself.
Jeffrey Harris of 401mania.com, friend of the show. The filmmaker and the animators at DreamWorks craft a breathtaking, rousing, emotional, and heartfelt adventure. Lupita Nyong'o delivers an exceptionally beautiful, tear-jerking performance through Roz's bond with Brightfall. Jeff, as usual, is on point.
Yep.
Oh, we found a splat. Oh, boy.
He did.
Eric Martin of Rogers TV. Programmed to be wild. DreamWorks.
I know, Mark. If there's anything about this that's going to make your cancer come back, it's reading some of these.
I can feel it. Programmed to be wild, DreamWorks Animation deploys an artificial crowd pleaser. I can't even get through this. An artificial crowd pleaser developed to extract tearful sentiment at the expense of full-fledged storytelling. All right, sir.
Hang on.
Eric.
This is one of these people who is so steeped in cynicism and bathos and irony that you're confusing simple, well-done, earnest storytelling and earnest movie making with something cynical that was crowdsourced to be that way. We have lost the ability to have earnest filmmaking and earnest storytelling in the world, and we are all poorer for it.
The future ex Mrs. Zach Strobel, Linda Cook of R Quad Cities, WHBF TV, Illinois. I'm just wild about this movie, and I'm wild about Zach, and he's just wild about can I do without talking with my mouth. Sorry.
What is that from?
That was.
One froggy evening.
Thank you, Zach. I can always count on you to see which cartoon I'm imitating. Anyway, I'm wild about this movie, Der Heap. Yep, that should engender silence. Let's move on.
Okay.
You don't want to quote your best friend?
No. I mean, I agree with what he said. That's no fun. Kyle Smith of the Wall Street Journal, former newspaper, top critic. This denial of nature is more banal than inspiring. The robot may grow a heart, but this movie feels strictly mechanical. Get him, Chris.
Well, I mean, he's entirely wrong. He needs to grow a heart. Fuck you, Kyle. like everyone has to have their opinion, but his opinion is definitely wrong. So
perfect. Jeremy Johns of JeremyJohns.com. It's awesome.
Really, that's all it takes to be a top reviewer?
Yep.
That and an audience.
We have one of those things.
Well, both of our viewers will disagree.
Something Indian of Screen Anarchy. Lots of consonants in a row says the denouement seems diagrammatically and cynically designed to put the protagonist in peril, push buttons, and work the viewer's sympathy, pity, and tear glands. Yes, it's called a fucking movie. What's wrong with you?
We're staring at a screen.
This is, once again, another guy just drenched in irony, cynicism, and bathos and just unable to appreciate earnest storytelling.
Speaking of earnest storytelling, the future ex-Mrs. Robert Winfree, Carla Renata of the Curvy Film Critic. The Wild Robot, a heartfelt story about the love which only comes from believing in yourself, regardless of what materials you're made of. It would be like Carla to miss the whole point about parenting and all that.
So, the future former oxygen consumer, Carla Renata.
After all, sometimes hearts have their own conversations leading one to answers that reside within all along. Ugh.
Yeah. How do you miss the point that badly?
Oh, that's Carla for you.
That takes effort. How do you mess up a children's movie like this? Like, you have to try. This has to be intentional. You can't be that dense.
There's a lot of tomatoes. I haven't seen this many tomatoes since my last stand-up.
All right.
Sorry, I got coughed in.
You actually legit popped me.
Good times.
All right, Chris. Did you have fun tonight? You glad you came?
I'm glad I came. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Why don't you tell everyone where you pissed from?
You guys can find I do a movie podcast on Movies Don't Suck at Something to Do. Also, you can find our shit at moviesdon'tsuck.net. We're at WTN. You can find us on Radulich Broadcasting. We puts it out there on his channel. We also have a little special part of it. We're YouTube, Bad Movies Don't Suck podcast. We're at Twitter, just our X just podcast. Facebook console Movies Don't Suck podcast. We're at Instagram, FTS podcast, and just search your name. We're everywhere.
So when am I coming on to do Wolves?
This might be next week, but again, Neil can't do things a week in advance. He just cannot figure it out. So I'll let you know.
I'm available on the 9th and the 10th, just so you know.
Okay, I'll keep that. I'll be looking at my calendar for that.
If we don't do Wolves, I'll be very sad.
Okay, all right.
What's gonna be the other movie you're gonna make me watch besides Wolves?
Let's
talk about the Wild Robot again. No, you're doing Megalopolis this week, so you might be doing the Wild Robot next week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe. I'll let you know.
I don't know. Wait, let me look through the movies that are in theaters right now, and I'll tell you what I want to do.
Okay. This is also and the 10th would be perfect for us. So.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll talk, baby. We'll have my agent call your agent. All right, and here he is, the star of our. Yes, over a lot of Bloody Marys. Speaking of Bloody Mary, Zach Strobel writes books and paints houses.
So yes, so unfortunately, not like this movie, I don't have any books that involve fuzzy animals, giant robots, man versus... Okay, punchline is it's Friendship Sanctuary. So this is... We have other good books like Whale Tales, Dinosaurs on the Moon. And look at all those reasonable prices. Not that one. That one can go die in a fire. That one was a favorite. Grand Prize Beagle, that one's good. They're all very different. We have a wide range, and by we, I mean I, have a wide range of books that for children and adults alike between the ages of 5 and 12, if also children at heart. But yeah, it's I worked really hard on these books. They're all very different, but they're all very, I would say they're more like pastiches. Like they're not really parody books. They're more like, they're kind of like they take inspiration from other books, but they're original stories. And that was a good one. The Retail Worker and the Substitute. That one's actually a prequel. That one's a good one.
So far of all of these, my favorite one is Choose Your Own Rosh Hashanah Adventure.
Hey, Rosh Hashanah is coming up. Thank you. It comes out on Thursday. So if you missed those Choose Your Own Adventures, and there you go. But yeah, that's Zachary Strobel. You can either find me on Google or Amazon. The Google will take you there. But yeah, that's, if you can't spell it, it's right. I'm very bad at this here. Yeah, just, yeah.
Alrighty, Zach. Well, folks, this Thursday we are in one of the rare repeats. There was a triple feature a few years ago that Sean and I did that featured the movie X from Ty West. And I was on Movies That Don't Suck and Some That Do to talk Maxine. So for the first time, however, we're going to talk about the entire X trilogy right here on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network. We're doing X, Pearl, and Maxine as a long road to ruin. I will be joined by people who love and appreciate each other and work well as friends. Sean Comer, Pat Mullen, and Alexis Hana.
Okay. For those who don't understand what Mark said, he's basically saying, I'm going to play host to like Israel, Palestine, and Iran, and we're going to work this out.
Yep. I may be on that podcast by myself when it's all said and done. But I won't be by myself on Joker, which will feature myself, as Robert is per usual, Alexis, Mick Wanamaker, and Dorian Price. So we've got that a week from tonight. And then a week from Thursday, we've got a triple feature of American remakes of French films. The aforementioned Blame It on Rio, LOL, starring Miley Cyrus, and The Woman in Red, featuring Kelly LeBrock. And that will have on it Dorian Price, Mick Wanamaker, and Sean Comer in theory. Robert Winfree, show us where you pissed from.
Well, I cover mixed martial arts and professional wrestling over at 411mania.com, WWE SmackDown on Fridays, UFC events on Saturdays. If you want more in-depth thoughts and discussion about those, I host the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast. I record that Sunday evenings. It goes up Mondays. This last episode, a review of UFC on ESPN Plus 101. They were back in Paris, France, and the French crowds are pretty darn awesome. And a preview of UFC 307, which emanates from Salt Lake City and is a card.
It's good.
It's not a good card. I don't know what you want me to say. When your co-main event is for the women's bantamweight title and nobody cares.
I feel like nobody
that
cares.
division is a wasteland.
Nobody cares is generally the gist with the UFC these days.
That's not true, and you know it. They're making money hand over fist. Main event is Alex Pereira and Khalil Roundtree, and Pereira's kind of awesome. So there's that. Again, full preview over there on the other podcast. And yeah, next week, more fun times will be had. We're talking about a sequel that shouldn't exist.
That's right. All right, folks.
Which we do more often than you might think around here.
And we'd like to. All right, folks. Thank you for joining us here on Damn You Hollywood for Chris Owen of Movies That Don't Suck and Some That Do, for Zachary Strobel of Children's Books, and Robert Winfree of Any Damn Podcast He Chooses. I Have to Pee. Be well, be safe, and behave.